Right. So, hello everyone, and welcome to episode 31 of the podcast Read in English. Thank you so much for everyone who is watching this video or attending this live conversation. If you have any questions throughout the talk, then you can just write them down in the chat and we'll go over them at the end of the conversation. And today, I have the pleasure to receive Sally Evans, an award-winning winemaker and author of the book Make the Midlife Move. This book, A Practical Guide to Flourish After 50, published in 2024. I met Sally last year thanks to our yoga teacher. She had told me that one of her yoga member, had written a book in English. So I immediately got curious and did some research. And when I got the chance to meet you, Sally, I asked you if you were interested in chatting about your book with our book club. And you said yes. And it was so nice to hear that an author from the area of Bordeaux had published a book in English. So, hi, Sally. So, you come from the UK from London, or am I right?
From the south of England originally.
South.
I was born
Okay.
in the south on the south coast, yeah. A long
Yes.
time ago.
Yes. But you lived and worked most of your life in France. And about 10 years ago, you decided to move to Bordeaux to become a winemaker. So now, can you tell us more about your background before coming to Bordeaux?
Okay. Well, thank you for having me, first of all. So it's a pleasure. And if you have any questions as well about my English or any terms that I use, please don't hesitate either to ask me to explain. So I grew up in the UK, went to university in London, and then lived in Spain for a couple of years
Ah,
post-university. And then
nice.
decided, okay, I need to go back and start work properly. And went back to the UK and ran what did we call a pub, but actually is more like
Ooh.
a mini hotel in an area of England called the Cotswolds. The
Oh,
Cotswolds,
yes.
yeah. So the Cotswolds is just outside Oxford, between Oxford, Stratford-on-Avon, where Shakespeare is from, and the
Mhm.
beautiful countryside. And with my then partner, we had a 8 bedroom inn with restaurants and bar and so forth. So that was my first touch with hospitality as an adult in my 20s. And then after that, I went back to study and I worked at the university in Bristol and I did a
Mm.
master's in Bristol in education. And then I decided with my other half to move to Paris. He wanted to move to Paris. By that time, I had a 4-year-old son and decided, well, that would be great to go and live in Paris. So that was a long time ago,
Mm.
which is why I've lived in France for so long.
Mm.
And when I was in Paris, I joined Accenture, big consulting company, as a marketing director. So that was my main career for 16
Mm.
years before I gave up work when my new son, my younger son, I have two boys, was around 14 and I had been traveling and working and I hadn't seen him very much. So
Mm.
I decided to give up my corporate life and spend time with him before he went to university. And by that point, I was a single mum and
Mm.
really wanted to spend some quality time with him before he left home.
Mm.
So that was life before studying wine. So there we go.
Yeah, amazing. And it's great to hear your journey and the different path that you took, the way that you started first with the hotel inn and then moved on to go back to university, I guess. Maybe what can you
Yeah.
tell us how old were you when you got back to university?
I was probably late 20s. So I
Yeah,
would say
yeah,
probably 28, 29. So I had
yeah.
my first degree in languages, uh,
Mm-hmm.
to work for a while. And then as I was working at one of the universities in Bristol, I really thought it would be great to do a master's in education at the other
Yeah,
university. So yeah, so lots of change.
yeah.
Lots to change.
Yeah, it's funny because I did the same. I did a master's in education. I started working and then went back to university and when I was living in London. So I did it in London, but it was also a master's in education. So yeah, it's
There we
funny.
go.
So now let's start diving into the book.
The book. Okay.
So, so page 12, it's very specific. You were
Okay.
talking about the fact that you had to take care of a lot of people, that you had responsibilities at certain points in your life. What was the turning point that made you realize that now you will do what you want and put yourself first, as you say
Yeah.
in your book?
Okay. Yes, I think that particularly as a woman who has a family, I obviously had juggled a career and a family, and that was fantastic. It was wonderful. But when the younger son reached 17 and he was about to leave for university, my elder son had already left a few years before. That was where I started thinking, okay, so now I'm not responsible for for being at home, for whatever my teenagers need.
Hmm.
He was about to leave home. And also my mum, who had been losing autonomy over several years, I had to put her. She had been living in France, but I had to take her back to England because her French was not good enough to
Mm,
cope with healthcare professionals when she was in times of stress. She could go and
mm,
buy a baguette, she could understand the basics, but when you are aging and ill and suffering, then it's a whole different ball game to actually understand the language. So it was really important for her to go back to the UK
mhm,
and have some care. And therefore, I suddenly felt, okay, so despite some financial responsibility for my son who was at university and my mum, I was literally free then. So I think
mm,
that happens a lot in your 50s, that the family moves on, the children grow up, and the parents maybe move to a stage where they are being looked after, or they have downsized, or they have care. For some people, that lasts a bit longer into their 60s
mm,
because people are living longer. But that is a time of life where you start to think, now I can do what I want to do.
mm, definitely. Yeah. Um, Now, page 15, you're saying that before thinking of buying a vineyard in Bordeaux, you wanted to teach English in Thailand.
Yeah.
So, yeah, tell us more about this shift in the decision of your
Okay.
next move.
Yes. So I think that as you start thinking about your life change, if you want to make a big life, whatever age, I did it in my 50s, and clearly the book is talking about midlife. And I think, you're far too young to be thinking about that. But I think that a lot of what
Hmm.
I put in the book applies whatever age you are. But you start thinking about things and themes that are important for you. And as I reflected on the fact that I'd been teaching English in Spain, I'd done my master's, I'd worked in a language center
Hmm.
in Bristol. And I started thinking, and I had also started traveling a little bit to Asia. And I thought, you know what, these are themes in my life. And I would really love to go and teach English in Thailand now that I'm free, or so I
Hmm.
thought. And then I thought about it again and I realized my mum is in care and I'm going to be a long way away. And my son, who was born in Paris, is now going to university in the UK where he doesn't have any family. He's never lived in England. And therefore, it might be tough. He may want to come home for weekends sometimes or may need something. And that's when I realized, okay, I am free. However, there are still the considerations to take, to think about. And I just didn't feel comfortable going so far at that point. And so I thought, okay, maybe that's for later. Maybe that's when I'm 70. I'll do that.
Mm,
Uh,
next
yeah,
next
next one.
chapter.
But
Yeah.
and so I started the process again, thinking about my key themes, and that's when
Mm,
wine
mm,
popped up.
mm. Yeah. Um, so now, how did the idea of buying a vineyard in Bordeaux came about?
Well, as I was saying, I was 52. Okay, my
Hmm.
son, who I had spent some time with as a teenager because I hadn't seen him when he grew up, was in the final exams doing his baccalaureate, and then he
Hmm.
was going to be going to England to university September, October. So it was around April, and I started thinking, goodness, one more summer and then he's gone, and I can, what am I going to do? So that's when I was doing all kinds of research. And while I was researching and while I was thinking about it, I decided to study wine. I thought I've always wanted to study wine. I've always wanted to be more knowledgeable um, about wine. I'd lived in France by that point around 25 years. And I was embarrassed at how little I knew about wine.
Ah,
So I decided to start some wine courses. And
okay.
as I started doing the wine courses, I just got bitten by the bug. I just really
Mm,
loved it. And I decided to combine it with potential of other passions, which is for renovation. I was living at the time in the southeast of France, and I hadn't really visited the southwest very much. And I thought this is a good combination. I can live or try exploring at least another part of France.
hmm.
I can do some renovation, and I can continue my wine studies and see what happens. So that's how it
Yeah.
happened. And I
S-
just came to
Sorry.
Bordeaux. No, that's it. That was it.
So you had started your course, your wine course in the southeast of France.
Yes. Yeah.
Ah, I see. Okay,
Yeah.
so and did you continue when you went to Bordeaux afterwards?
Yeah. So there is
Ah.
a certification scheme called the WSET, Wine and Spirit Education Trust. They run
Hmm.
courses, they run it in Paris, they run it all over Europe and in the UK. And in the Southeast, they do the first couple of levels. There are 4 levels altogether, and they did the first 2 or 3 levels. And I did that down where I was living. And then the fourth level, which is a 2-year diploma, is much more serious and much more in depth. I had to do that in London. At the time, the only place in France you could do it was Dijon. And now
Oh.
they run this diploma in Bordeaux. But when I was living in Nice, it was easier to get to London than it was to get to Dijon.
Well, yeah, this is the paradox of the
Yeah.
transportation in France or with the I don't know with the fly
Yeah,
the
the way
plane
it's
and stuff.
organized.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I started my diploma going to London to study my courses. And that's when so I started my wine courses in April
Uh-huh.
2014. By October 2014, I had decided I am going to try and spend time in Bordeaux, and I'm really
Hmm.
interested in trying to make some wine. And by December 2014, I had found this property. So
Oh wow,
I moved
that's
very
quite
quickly. Once I
fast. Yeah,
decided, I moved really quickly. Yeah.
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 But so that means that you were doing remotely. You were studying remotely the London course.
The way they organize it is that you do blocks. So you go for a week and you have classes all day, every
Ah,
day for about a week. And then you go
ah,
away and you do your own studies. And then you come back maybe 3 months later and you do another week. And in the meantime, you're studying and tasting, but you get your course in person for a week at a time.
I see.
And that is because this diploma is mainly aimed at wine professionals, people who are working in wine. And therefore, it's really the idea is that you take some time, do the courses, then you go back to work and you practice what you've learned.
Yes, I see. I see. So it gives you flexibility as a professional
Yeah.
to not be away for too long. I
Right.
see. Interesting. Um, Now, page 17, you talk about Rife,
Yes.
Carol Rife's research on well-being, which reminds me of the Wheel of Life. You probably
Okay.
heard of that concept as well, where you have to look at your life, reflect, and it gives you give yourself a number from you rank from 1 to 10.
Right.
How would you position your love life, for example, or your health?
Yeah.
And so, how did you come across that research, and how did this tool help you change your life?
Oh my goodness. There's big questions.
Yes.
Um, I was doing quite a lot of research. So I think I say at the beginning of the book, because I have a very active business here, where sometimes I'm just running around, sometimes I'm in the vines, sometimes I'm just cleaning the tasting room or polishing glasses. I actually don't read a lot, but I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Yes.
So podcasts are now our new way of consuming content, especially when you're doing something manual like labeling wine. You really don't need to concentrate that much. And so it's fabulous to listen to podcasts or to an audio book. But I consume a lot of podcasts. So I think I came across Carol Reef when I was um, listening to podcasts. And before I wrote the book, I was very, very interested in midlife, in women, overall, how generation to generation things are changing for women. Clearly, we have a lot of things in the news over what happens in terms of equality, and this is all very pertinent because we've got International Women's Day coming up.
Yep.
But so very interested in in all the topics around life, and also as we start to come through, and I think reflecting on my project, come through this period where you've had your job and you have to be part of the vision of the person that you work for, your family, your other commitments that you've had, and coming out the other side, and when you start reflecting, what do I want in life? And it's quite an interesting period because sometimes I found myself that it was frightening because I had too much choice. I think we may complain about having a job, or we've got a property here and we've got this, we've got a child at school, and but it also gives us purpose and it gives us some kind of anchor in our life. And I think that people who, because of some tragedy, perhaps suddenly find things are taken away from them, apart from the tragedy they've gone through, it's also quite, oh my gosh, I can choose
Mm.
now, I can do whatever I want. And you really want to hang whatever you do on some kind of beliefs and some guiding principles. And therefore, I came across Carol's work and I really started thinking about the things that she talked about in terms of finding fulfillment. And I found that they were so true to my situation.
Mm.
Um, and like I say, it's only when I suggest people are looking at making a life change, you have to really think about what is driving you. This is your choice. So this isn't about, well, my husband's moving there and I'm going to go and do this because that will bring X amount of money because that's what we need. You're not in that scenario anymore. You're in a scenario where you are thinking, what do I want and what is driving me? Do I want to go and help people? Do I want to just be more spiritual? Do I, whatever it is that is driving you to do something. And therefore, I really loved Carol's outline, and I found that they really spoke to me. And I think I
Mm.
mentioned that having a sense of control over your life, a feeling of autonomy, they become really, really important.
Mm.
And they're very, very important for your finding fulfillment and finding happiness.
Yeah.
That
So,
was a long answer.
yeah. So
Sorry about that.
yeah, no, it's great. It's really interesting, and it really, so you related to her or what she was saying in the podcast or in the book, really
In her
spoke to you. Yeah,
research.
in her
Yeah,
research. Yeah.
absolutely. And I think, having a sense of purpose, I think also um, something that we're told is really important as we get older is continuing learning, personal growth.
Mm,
It's important for our brains. As when we're younger, as we go through different stages of life, we do. We suddenly a friend says, "I'm starting salsa dancing. Do you want to come along?" Yeah, I'm going to
mhm.
come along. So we're not actually actively going out and thinking, "What can I learn?" But we tend to continue using our brains through reading and learning. And I think that's really important as you get older to want to continue to learn and keep your brain active. And that's what I feel keeps me young.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that she brought out that I felt was really important.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Um, in chapter 3, you talk about the authenticity and societal expectations
Yeah.
on women. Can you expand more on that? And in your opinion, what are the societal expectations of women in their 50s?
Oh my goodness. I've no idea. What was the first part of the question? And I'll get back to the what was the
Um, so in chapter 3, you talk about authenticity and societal expectations
right.
in this part of the book. Um,
Yeah, now authenticity is, again, I think really, really important, especially as you become more liberated from certain things that are tying you and certain limitations. Um, you know, we've all done jobs where, we have to work to the vision of the company that we're working for. Now, obviously, we would not want to work for someone or an establishment that has, you know, ethics that we don't believe in
mhm,
fundamentally, clearly. Putting that aside, but it still means that the priorities of what you do every day is the priorities of somebody else.
mm,
So, because you are there to do a job, and
mm,
that's what they need. Now, it may be, I'm not saying that, that's a bad thing. It's just that's the way the world works and what you have to do. And there are times, I'm sure, even in teaching, where you think, oh, I wish I could spend more time on this. And you have to try and find a work array around to do that while you know that you've got to cover A, B, and C. So we're working. So I think but at the same time, we're trying to be as authentic as we can. There are also times when dealing with aging parents. There are times we're dealing with children. There are times we're dealing with friends and friendships, and it could be our children's friends' parents that we know that that friendship is really important to our child, and therefore we have to manage the relationship with that friend's parents when maybe we don't particularly like them, or work
mm,
colleagues, or whatever.
mm,
So I'm not saying that we are willfully being inauthentic. It's just that we cannot always be our true authentic self because we
mm,
have to help oil the wheels of the happiness of others. And that's
mm,
just how the world works. And as you look at maybe making a major life change, where clearly I did it on my own, but a lot of women or men are doing it with a partner, or they're doing it while they still have a partner, they still want to keep that partner. A
mm,
lot of people in their 50s realize that they don't want that partner any longer,
mm,
which is, another big realization once the children leave home. It can be a realization of, oh my God, the years are going past. I don't particularly want to do
mm,
this bit
mm,
with you. So that happens quite a lot. Um, but I think it's really important at this point to say, this is the authentic me. This is what I believe. This is what I really think. And I
mm,
don't have to worry so much about keeping other people happy.
mm, mm.
I'm done with that.
Especially, yeah. Yeah, especially when you start your own thing, your own business, or when you want to start something that you really want to do, or you've been waiting for to do. So
Yeah.
actually, I was really surprised. I didn't expect that authenticity would be approached that way in the later in the chapter when you explain your choice of not having an organic certification. And that was a completely unexpected outlook for me. Can you explain to our listeners why you made that choice, which could seem controversial with the, well, I put quotes, but unexpected at least.
Yes. So I use that example because that was really where I followed my heart. So, as you know, in Bordeaux, we have very rainy weather. We have a lot of rain. We have hot weather
Mhm,
too, but we have a lot of rain, especially over winter because of the Atlantic and the rain coming in. Organic viticulture means that you not only do minimum intervention, but you cannot use chemicals or non-natural products
mhm,
on the vines to protect them from any enemies. Now, our main enemy here in Bordeaux, because of mildew, of the rain, is mildew.
mhm,
So we get beautiful warm summers normally to ripen the grapes, but there is a period around May into June where it can rain a lot when it's hot. So this hot, wet weather can create a lot of mildew. Now, in organic viticulture, the only product that you can use is naturally occurring copper. Copper is a naturally occurring metal, and copper can be sprayed onto the vines to protect them from mildew. The
mhm,
problem with copper is that you can only use it in limited quantities because although it is natural, it is toxic in too much quantity. Therefore, if you spray a lot of copper on the vines, if when the rain comes and it washes off, the copper goes into the soil and it can render the soil lifeless after a
mm,
certain amount of time. So, although copper is natural and it is known as the Bordeaux mixture mixed with lime and
mm,
sulfur, it only stays on the outside of the leaves and therefore it washes off. Now, that means that in a rainy year, here in Bordeaux, organic farmers are forced to treat a lot of times. Now, they
mm,
may make their mixture diluted so that they can take the maximum which is allowed, which is 4 kilos per hectare per year, and spread it a little bit at a time because every time it rains, then they have to spray again. But my
mhm,
problem with that is that every time you do a treatment, you are compacting the soil, and every time you do a treatment, you are using diesel. Obviously, there are not many people who've got electric tractors yet.
mhm,
So they're using diesel, and diesel is the second most impactful on the carbon footprint of a life in a vineyard. The
mhm,
first one is glass production, but the second one is diesel. So although you are organic by using copper, if
mm,
you are doing 3 times the number of treatments, and if you are not organic, then you are using 3 times the amount of diesel and you are compacting the
mm,
soil, which needs to have oxygen, which needs to have the organic matter in it, living and breathing to feed the soil, to feed the vine roots. So, from my perspective, I was told by my head of production, look, there is a product here which comes from the original molecule is from the plant, but it's been reproduced using technology. So we've used technology. Therefore, it is not totally naturally occurring, but is now concentrated, and we can put it back on the plant to reinforce the natural defenses of the plant to fight
mm,
the enemy. And that means we can cut the treatments down in a wet year to 1/3, which means we use 1/3 less diesel and 1/3 less tractor passes. So for me, that made common sense.
mm,
Let's use technology where we can. Copper, if you use too much of it, is toxic, even though it's natural. There are a lot of
mm.
things that are natural that are toxic
Yeah,
if in the wrong way.
paradox. Yeah, mm,
And
mm,
so I'm going to go with sustainability because for me, that is a
mm,
more holistic approach to sustainability.
mm.
Everybody else should do what they feel, but that was my authentic approach.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
definitely.
here ended the lesson on sustainability.
E- Thank you. And on wine production as well. It's really I've learned so many things and terms as well in English, but also learning about what it is really what it implies to produce wine and the process of it. So it was really interesting for that.
There we go.
So I loved the passage where you talked about sexism in page,
Oh
so
my
that's
gosh.
page 55 to 59, with the real estate agent, then the lorry driver, and the enologist. And having now more experience and being more well known in the French wine industry, do you still experience sexism?
Oh goodness, yes, I do.
Okay.
I don't care, and I managed to. I think I managed to give as good as I get, which is a really good English phrase, to give as good as I get.
Hmm.
Um, I'm used to it. Obviously, by there is sexism not only in France but in lots of other countries too.
Yeah,
That's not a French thing. However,
definitely.
but and in the wine industry, it depends on the role that you have. I think that if you are in a chain of command where your promotion depends on somebody above you promoting you, then it can be complicated. And especially in an industry, in the hospitality industry, where alcohol is being consumed, sometimes that brings out the worst in people. So we find in environments where alcohol is being consumed, sometimes you see parts of people that are not particularly nice that you might not see
Mm.
in an environment, a normal environment when people have had a bit too much to drink.
I see.
So I'm very lucky because it's me that calls the shots. But yes, I had it literally 3 weeks ago with somebody who was delivering something here, and
Okay.
he really did not think that I knew the best places on my land to turn the lorry around. And I'm like, I know, and he just wouldn't. He's like, well, anyway,
So did
we
he get stuck?
he did get stuck.
Did
He
he
did
get
get
stuck?
stuck. Yes, he got stuck because we'd had a lot of rain and he's got stuck in the mud. Yeah, but there we go.
Okay.
And he just wouldn't believe me. And I honestly believe that if I had been a man, had gone out there as a
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
said to him, "This is the way you need to turn your truck," he would have believed me.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
There we go. His problem. He got stuck.
Definitely. Learned your lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Now, page 61, you're talking about the fact that you're mentoring other women to get into the wine business. What have you learned so far from this mentoring scheme?
So I've done a lot of mentoring over the years in different capacities. In my job at Accenture, I had quite a big team, and I also mentored people outside. So I've always loved that part of, and I think, like you have, in teaching and education, I think that comes from that as well. There's this mentoring is very closely
Mm.
linked to this desire to transmit something and to see how people evolve and change and so forth. So I've done quite a lot, and just naturally, as I got talking about my project right at the beginning, I had a few women saying to me, "Oh my God, I would love to do that. Oh my God." One was when I was on holiday, a long way away. I got chatting to a young lady and she said, "Oh, I'd love to know a bit more about it. Can we have calls? Can we chat
Mm.
about it?" And so that sort of naturally happened. And actually, it was through some of those conversations, also through students who were doing the diploma that I had done, where I was sort of talking them through some of the psychological aspects of approaching the exams and so forth. That's when I realized that there is actually a real, pleasure in women supporting women.
Mm.
Absolutely. And I still have people that I talk to regularly because of the book and because I have messages which are beyond wine as well.
Mm.
I also do workshops one-on-one and small group for midlife change, looking at some of the methodology in the book
Oh.
and do that. But certainly, I'm always contacted on LinkedIn or just email saying, I'm looking at getting into the wine industry. Can we have a
Oh,
call?
wow.
So yeah, so I love it.
That's
I love
great.
it.
Yeah, amazing.
Pay forward. You always pay forward.
Mm, mm. Um, Now, page 85, you talk about, oh, yes, that's an interesting topic as well. You talk about your fear of losing money in the process of deciding and in the process of building your chateau, and how you decided to go for it in stages. What do you think is the common mistake that people make, leading them to lose all the money they have invested? Because you at some point you're mentioning that some people have lost their money. So I was curious to know what was your um, views on that, on the money
Okay.
side.
Yeah, money is a really interesting topic, isn't it? It's an interesting topic in couples. It's an interesting topic as, you grow up and you learn to
Mm,
manage money. And it's very interesting in terms of how you value what you think is enough money. And it's so personal. Money
mm,
is so personal. And it is very much a result of what you have experienced over the years. If you have experienced being very, very poor, for example, my mum grew up with her parents, had very little, and her dad died when she was very young. She had very little. And so belongings and material things became quite important to her as she got older because it was
mm,
a feeling of security that she hadn't had when she was younger. Um, and so, yeah, so money is a very, very emotive topic anyway. And so, what I found was really important from my perspective is that I was 52 when I started this project. Okay, so I'm 62 now. And I knew that my pension that I had paid into in my working life was still quite a long way off.
mm,
Okay. So I had to think about how are you going to live? How are you going to be sure that you're not going to get into any financial difficulty? And also, when you do a project later in life, if it goes wrong, you won't have as many years to make up
mm,
what you may have lost. So I think one is often a little bit more risk positive when maybe you're in your 20s because you're thinking, okay, I'm going to have a go at this startup. If it doesn't work, I'll go back, I get another job, and you've got a lot of years to make up if it doesn't work, and you have a run at different things. When you get to your 50s, you're really worried about losing what you've got because you know you haven't got so much time to make it up if you lose it, or the opportunity. It's not just the time, but the opportunity and the energy that you had. So I'm very risk averse. I knew that if I was going to start a business rather than getting a job, I was going to have to be really careful not to get into a cash flow problem. Now, that's where most businesses fail in the first few years, is the fact
mm,
that they run out of cash. They may be a good business, but because at some point you've got to buy equipment or buy raw materials, and you to get the product made to be able to sell it to the people who want to buy it, cash can be a big problem. So I was very, very clear about that. And I wanted, above all, to get fun from this. This had to be fun, it had to be pleasure. And it wasn't going to be pleasure if I felt financially every night I was waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning going, oh my God, what
mm,
am I going to do? How am I going to pay my bills? And that that was an absolute driver. Clearly, at every age, you have a different attitude to risk and money based on your circumstances at that point.
mm,
Uh, but I think that money is a really important thing because it can really break. It can really break all the pleasure out of it, and it can mean that you can get into a spiral of making some wrong decisions as well.
mm,
So that is why I have done something very small and very modest, and
mm,
that was my choice.
mm. Yeah, and it worked out so far. So
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 far,
good.
it's worked
So
out.
good.
Very much. I have the positioning of a boutique winery with a small production with good
Mm,
quality, which means I can put the money into the production of do a quality production, and then get the margins on the wine and sell the wine and
mm,
position it without worrying, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, I've got to sell
mm.
this, I've got to sell
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
Obviously, I have to sell wine, but I am
yeah,
not pressured because of financial pressure. That
yeah,
was yeah.
yeah. Yeah, your decisions are not tied up to your financial issues or
Security. No.
yeah, yeah,
And
definitely.
that's because, I could have come to Bordeaux and been fallen in love with the most beautiful big house.
Hmm.
Would have cost a lot to run. I bought a very modest set of buildings, created a home there that I wanted to do, but that is my choice of how to do it. I didn't get carried away, because
Yes.
I did not want to have any financial risk.
Yes. So to explain a little bit more, so you created the chateau. The name of the chateau didn't exist,
No.
right?
That's
Yeah.
right. So I bought the parcel of vines, which
Yeah.
did exist, which were already planted and were mature vines, and there
Mm.
were some dilapidated buildings with it, and that there was a worker's cottage somebody had been living in as a worker working for another chateau, and an old tractor barn, and a winery that had never made wine. So I
Mm.
renovated the house. And I thought, okay, if I decide not to stay, I can sell and I can get my money back from the renovation.
Yes. I
So I
remember you were saying
taken
that. Yeah.
every step because I was on my own and because I didn't want to get in any risk. I made those decisions with a plan B, with a fallback plan.
Yeah, and especially with renovation, you never know what can happen or what trap you can open, or you never
Yeah,
know the cost as well. You kind of you anticipate a certain amount of a certain budget, but sometimes it goes over and things
yeah,
that you didn't anticipate.
that's
So
right.
yeah,
Exactly.
can
Exactly.
be unexpected as well. Yeah. Um, so page 115, you're saying that not having a business partner, however, is something I now regret. It would have been great to have one with complementary skills and with whom I could make decisions. So
Yes.
my questions from the this quote is that if you had to start all over again, what would you do differently?
Good question. So I think that is actually a really important part. I think that on the one hand, it would have been amazing. Now, I didn't have a life partner, so I was single, and I had a boyfriend, but he was not. We were not living together. We were not uh, building anything together,
Mm,
and so it was very much my project, and that can be lonely. It can be
mm,
lonely because you are making all the decisions yourself. You are having strategy sessions and brainstorming with yourself.
mm,
And although I soon found two amazing external consultants who helped me with the wine project, they were not the that it was not their money, and they were not deciding if I should launch into this wine um, industry. And so I really, it would have been amazing to have had a business partner with complementary skills
mm,
who had skin in the game in terms of investment and could have taken some of the load. Now, the problem was because I did not have a vision at the beginning of the exact end point where I wanted to go. How can you have a business partner if you don't exactly know where you're going to go?
mm.
And also, a lot of people who know me say, but you would have argued because you always do what you want to do and you always know your own mind. But the right business partner, it would have been amazing, and we could perhaps have achieved different things.
Yeah.
And yeah, living in the vines and running this all on my own is sometimes it gets lonely, and I would
Yeah.
like to have someone to bounce ideas off. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you think at some stages you think that someone could have jumped in into with you with this project, or so far you haven't found anyone that could have been a good partner?
I haven't really looked, to be honest.
Okay.
That wasn't, I just carried
Mm,
on my path. If the right person had shown up at the right time, then maybe that could have been a discussion. At the same time, I think it is. I didn't need the money. A lot of people take on business partners because they want a financial injection. And that wasn't what I was looking for. I actually was looking more for somebody who could do some of the work and share some of the aspects of running the vineyard, um, rather than cash. It wasn't about cash.
mm,
So nobody has shown up, and
mm,
you know, I've managed okay.
yeah.
So.
So now page 20, 120, you talk about your position as an outsider in a region anchored in its traditions and old ways. What impact do you think you have made in the village of Fronsac, which
Oh my
is
goodness.
where you live?
Well, you'll have to ask my neighbors that. I mean, as I
Aha.
often say when people ask me, so what do your neighbors think? I said, well, they're very nice to my face, but I don't know what they say behind my back. And actually, that's one of the positive things about being midlife. I really don't care what they say
Mm,
behind my back, as long as they are not unkind and they're
mm,
not telling lies.
yeah,
Um, but maybe they are. I don't know. I'm sure they're not. So
yeah.
basically, I feel that I am a big champion of Franzac. I feel that I have joined in and I've tried to join in with other winemakers who want to get Franzac more well known. It
Mhm.
has to be said that because of my previous career in marketing, I have done a lot of marketing and I do a lot of marketing. And I think the fact that I only have 3 hectares, I think I make more noise for my 3 hectares than many people across the 100,000 hectares there are in Bordeaux. And
That's
we
crazy.
recently had a wonderful article about Franzac, in fact, in February, in the drinks business, which is a trade magazine. And we had the most amazing article about Franzac, and I was quoted in it, and I'm pictured, and I have the closing quote. And a lot of my neighbors are in there too.
Mm.
But I feel very proud that I am in the press quite a lot. I've been in the press again with the
Mm.
book.
Yes.
Because marketing your product is really important. It's just
Yeah.
really important. So
Yeah.
I don't know what they think, but I think some of them are very respectful that I've created something from zero. In fact, a
Yeah.
couple said to me, we are very admirative of what
Mm.
you've done.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's a few who think, I don't know, what's this British woman doing?
Yeah. And
What do I care?
yes. But well, from people talking to you saying this, or the fact that you I lost my what did I want to
Lots of
say?
train of thought.
Yes. Um because you talked to oh yes, you talked about marketing. What do you think? Do you think this is the problem in well, or the one of the issue that maybe the winemakers have in France, or in not necessarily in France, but in that village, in that region of Bordeaux? Do you think that people don't know how to market the
I
enough, don't know
I think
well?
I
Mm.
think that, the history of how Bordeaux has sold its wines meant that a lot of the transactions went through the négociants, the wine merchants,
Mm.
and
Hmm.
therefore the producer, over several generations, was not in the mindset and did not need to know their customer. And the world has changed.
Mm,
The world of things that we eat has changed and we consume. It's all about provenance. People want to know, where's my meat come from? How has my vegetables been grown? Where does my wine come from? And I think that there is a wine consumption overall is going down. Wine production has gone up. So the new world is creating, making great wines, which are competing with the traditional countries of France, Spain, Italy. And therefore, every customer has to be earned, like in many industries. Could be the cosmetics industry, it can be
yeah.
all kinds of industries. You have to earn your clients.
Mm,
And therefore, marketing is maybe a skill set that um, previous generations have not needed or felt were necessary. They were amazing at looking after the land. They were great at making wine, really good at getting to know their neighbors and selling their neighbors wine or having a relationship with a négociant. But marketing is another skill set that they now have to
yeah.
learn. And so
Yeah.
yes, it's tough, and some are learning it the hard way.
Yeah.
But I came in to a region that had a lot of expertise around winemaking, and I came in with marketing. So I
Mm,
could tap into this deep expertise of winemaking and bring my skills, and together we're a team. I had that conversation today with the gentleman who helps me make my wine.
mhm,
I just got a score for my 2022 wine in bottle. I just saw on Jane Anson's website that it got a 93 points for my
mhm.
2022 in bottle. And I
Wow.
rang Anthony and I said, "Thank you. This is amazing." And he says, "No, this is team effort
Mm,
because I have now got a relationship with certain critics and follow them and build a relationship with them in a very respectful way. And that way, my wines are tasted by the critics. So,
mm.
you know,
Pays off.
you need both. You
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
every,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's great. Mm. Um, page 177, you're saying that now you have no intention to, so we're towards the end of the book now.
yeah.
So you're saying that you have no intention of taking more land or producing more, but you're talking about setting up a wine club. What are your plans for the future?
Okay. So I've got lots of plans. I've just
Oh,
had the winter traveling and I've come back with so many ideas.
oh wow.
This is the problem. I come back and I've got too many ideas. So, yes, no, the wine club I am launching later this month. It is really
Mm,
for people who live perhaps in the US or in across Europe who want to have a regular delivery of my wines. It is going to be open, obviously, to local people as well. But that obviously the people who live further away, then I'm shipping wine to them. And so it's very much around making a selection in the spring and in the autumn to say, this are the wines I'm suggesting, and this is the collection for this time of year. And that way, they get benefits from being a member of the club, and therefore they will get special gifts, they will
yeah.
get invited to certain things. So it's not a new concept. There are a few wineries in Bordeaux doing it. It's done a lot in the United States. I think
Mhm.
it's doing a bit more in the UK where they are, there's more and more wine production. And so that is something I'm launching along with a new wine that I am bottling. I've bottled, but I'm labeling, which is a Royal Reserve. So that's a new wine in honor of Queen Elizabeth II, who
Oh,
died in 2022. And I want to do more writing. Um,
uh-huh.
and so I eventually will sell the vineyard and I will go off and do more adventures. So I have
Ah, I
no
see.
intention of stopping my life change at the moment. I'm going to keep on doing more things,
Mm-hmm.
and all of them that interest me.
Ah, I see. So you don't you don't close your or you don't you're open to the fact that you might at some point leave and sell your wine.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. Because
Okay.
this has been a project. So it's been
Yeah.
10 years. On the 23rd of March, it is 10 years since I signed the final contract
Yeah.
to buy it. And so it's already been a wonderful 10-year project.
Yeah.
Uh, So, I'm 62 now, and I'm hoping that at 72, I'm going to be doing something different. I've
Oh,
still got
okay.
lots of other things to do, and
Yeah.
it is a business, and a business needs your time and attention, your
Mm.
energy. And I feel I've loved the writing. The writing has got a lot of visibility. I would love to do more with working with women who want to do life change. I want to run a retreat.
Ah,
I want to run more workshops. So there's loads more to
I
do.
see. Yes, definitely, definitely. I'm sure it will be, yeah, it will be great. Yeah. Now my final, yes, it's my final question. So throughout the book, you're mentioning lots of different podcasts. You mentioned that you were listening a lot of podcasts at the beginning of the chat. What are your favorite podcasts or podcasters that you
Okay,
could
so
recommend?
I have a very broad mix of taste because I don't want to just listen about certain things. So one that I love is Diary of a CEO. I
Oh, I love
don't know if
him.
you've heard of him. Yeah, Stephen Bartlett. He has done a lot around business in the past, and he does a lot more about well-being and health and things like that. So that is one that I absolutely love. Another one I love is there is now I'm going to have a senior moment. I can't remember her name, but I will find it. It's called Table Manners.
Oh, yes.
Table Manners, which is by the singer, uh,
Yes.
yeah, and her mother. And
Yes.
they invite people around and they talk about the food that you had growing up and how it has shaped you and what your final meal would be if you were going to be sent to the gallows or if you were going to a desert island. So I really love that because I think you can tell a lot about people by their food choices,
Mm,
and
yeah.
how they love food, which I absolutely
Yeah.
love that one. There are two podcasts which I love, which are more on a business basis.
Hmm.
Two American ladies. One is Marie Forleo,
Oh, yeah.
Forleo, the Marie Forleo podcast. She has so much energy. She's so amazing. And she has fantastic tips around branding, around business, and so forth. And she does it as a funnel for her courses. And the other one
Yes.
is Amy Porterfield. I love Amy Porterfield.
I know her as well.
Yes, who
Yeah.
does a lot of online courses. So I love
Yes.
those. And I love some health ones as well. Um,
Hmm.
there's a particular one which I really like. There is a doctor from the UK who does one called Feel Better, Live More. His name is Dr.
Mm.
Rangan Chatterjee. So they're talking a lot about brain health, bone health, linking your diet. I'm vegetarian. So looking at
Mm.
your diet and how you can improve your health. So those are some of my absolute favorites. I don't know if
Hmm.
you've heard of another guy called Jay Shetty. He has a one
Yes.
called On Purpose. Yeah, I love him.
Same.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
lots of them. And then there's one more which I find is wonderful, but called by Elizabeth Day. So her name is Elizabeth Day, and she has a podcast called How to Fail. And she
Yes.
introduces somebody, a well-known person, and they have to talk about three times when they have failed in their
Mm.
life or their career
Yeah.
and talk about what they learned from it. So I think that that's really fascinating. So there we go.
Yeah.
That's a selection of my favorites.
Oh, it's full of, yeah, it's great. I love this selection, and I'm sure that uh it will help people who don't know, who are not sure what podcast to listen, and they it will be definitely helpful for people to know about these podcasts, amazing podcasts.
Good, good.
Right. So before we end our conversation, maybe Kitty, who's been listening the discussion, do you have any comments, or would you like to ask any questions to Sally? You have the floor.
Oh, thank you. I have one question. Did someone inspire you to write the book?
Oh, it's a good question. Well, because I do wine tours here at the chateau and I show people around myself, inevitably at the beginning of the wine tour, people would say, "So, how did you come here? You're a British woman, and how did you?" So I would tell the story, and they would say, "Oh my God, that's brilliant. Oh my God, and everyone would say, "You should write a book. You should write a book." And so as I talk to people, and often because my target audience are often people 45 plus who come doing a wine tour, discovering the region, and they would ask me questions, and it was through all those questions and answering those questions that a lot of the content of the book came. So that's how it happened.
Nice. And did you read similar books while writing?
No, I wanted definitely for it to be very practical.
Yeah.
So I didn't want it to be just what I did. So only at the end of each chapter does it say, for when we're talking about building your confidence or facing your fears or creating a plan, and why, and managing risk or authenticity. I then at the end of the chapter talk about my experience in that particular topic. But so I didn't. I had listened to a lot of podcasts on the subject. I was very inspired. And I just thought, no, I'm going to write what I believe is the journey and the guide. And so no, I haven't actually read any other books like that. And I didn't want to. I didn't want to be influenced.
Mhm.
And how long did it take to write the book?
Not long. Uh, so it was last winter. In fact, in January, I like to travel in winter because I don't like Bordeaux in the winter. It's very rainy and cold. Ugh. So I like to travel. And the vines are resting. There's nothing happening in the winery. I don't need to be here, right? So, but unfortunately, last January, my mother died, and there was quite a lot of practical stuff to sort out with her dying, and therefore I couldn't go away to the sun. And that also, I think when you lose somebody close to you, that also causes a period of reflection. And so the reflection of thinking about her life and about what I had got from her, and then this fact that I was stuck in Bordeaux in the rainy weather, thinking, okay, I need to use this time productively. I need to get something positive out of this time rather than just wandering around eating chocolate and drinking, tea. So I need to do something. And that's when I thought, okay, I'm going to get the book out. So the book just fell out of me. And
Wow.
I say I had finished it by March. Probably took about 8 or 9 weeks to write it. And then after that, it was editing. Editing takes as long to edit as it is to write it. Because you have to move things around.
Understand, yes.
Yeah. But it didn't take long to write, no.
And have you already an idea what would be another book? What?
Yeah, I would love to. Well, I've half written a fiction book.
Okay.
I would love a fiction book, which, funnily enough, is a story of a woman who decides to start a vineyard. But I got about halfway through, and in fact, I did that first, and then last winter, then I thought, no, I need to do the non-fiction first because it's easier in a way. But I will come back to the fiction. But actually, everyone I talked to about it has said, don't write the book, just write the treatment for the film and sell the film first. So we'll see. We'll see. But I'm busy because we're into growing season that I won't have time to do any writing over the summer. So it'll have to wait till next winter.
Yes, thank you very much.
Oh, well, thank you for joining, Ketty. Lovely to meet you.
Thank you.
Great. Great questions, Kitty. Thank you so much for these questions. And I'm very curious about this next book now.
Yes. Well, we'll have to
And
wait and see.
I hope you get the time to write it next winter. And yeah, so thank you so much again for taking the time to discuss with us, Sally.
Oh, well, my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Liddy. You're a very good host.
Oh,
Host.
thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate. Thank you. So we can. So now, can you tell us just where we can find your book on your website?
Yes, well, you can look for it on Amazon.
Yeah.
So if you just go straight to Amazon and you type in Make the Midlife Move, it should come up in paperback and Kindle. So that is the easiest. I have a website for the winery, Château George set, but I also have a website for midlife and women's support activities called sallyevans.co.uk, which is
Mhm.
me. But if you're looking for the book, just type it into Amazon FR or Amazon DE or wherever, and you can find
Mhm.
it.
And do you think there could be a translated version in French at some point?
Well, funnily enough, I
Huh?
was just talking about translating books with a friend of mine today,
Uh-huh.
and I think that that could well be a good idea. My book was featured in Elle magazine in
Yeah.
November in the special edition,
Hmm.
and at the time I'm thinking, yeah, maybe I need to translate it into French. So
Yeah, it would be
watch this
great.
space. Watch this space.
Yes, yes, definitely. Well, thank you so much again for this amazing discussion. And that's it. I wish you a lovely end of the day,
Thank you very
and see you
much.
soon.
And
Thank
you, Liddy.
you.
Stay in touch. Yeah, come and visit.
Definitely. Thank you. I will. Thank you
All
so
Thank you
right.
very much for this pleasant evening
Oh,
together. It was a pleasure to know you, to meet you, and
Oh, thank
I'm
you.
oh,
absolutely
sorry.
fascinated by you, by the way you are speaking, by your ideas, by your attitude towards business, toward life, and so I thank you very much.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you, Frederica.
Sally and
That's
also
very
Lizzie.
kind.
Yes. Yes, and
Oh,
Michael, I'm
hi.
fascinated about the way you're talking. You and Lizzie, both of you, was really very nice to spend an hour with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Oh,
Frederica.
hi.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so
Thank
much.
you.
I didn't realize that it wasn't. I only
Don't
saw
worry.
Katie. So I'm so sorry. I didn't see
No,
that
don't
you were
worry. Don't
here.
worry. So thank you very
Thank
much
you
for
for
this
attending the live.
opportunity. For this
Oh,
opportunity. Thank you very much.
maybe do you, sorry, do you have maybe a question or I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you were.
I just want to thank you because
Oh,
it was really a pleasure to be here with you. Really a pleasure.
thank you. And Barbara, thank you so much as well for joining, for attending.
Yeah, thank you for the discussion. It's very amazing. Yes,
Do
thank
you
you
have
so
any
much.
questions?
Oh, no, no.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Barbara, as well. Thank you for your lovely message.
Oh, thank you again for attending this live and have a lovely evening, Sally. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. All
Bye
right.
bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.